Rachele Manett is a sex educator, certified therapeutic recreation specialist, and the host of That Sex Show on AMI-TV. We're pleased to welcome her from her home in Halifax. Welcome to the show, Rachele.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, for starters, could you introduce for us what is a sex educator and how did you become one?
Yeah, so a sex educator really is someone who teaches people about sex in any capacity. There's so many different kinds of sex educators that exist, often who talk about different topics or specialize in different topics. And the topic that I specialize in is very much sex and disability, and with like a queer lens woven in, because that is my own experience. Yeah, how did I become a sex educator? That is a long and winding road of a story, but essentially I went to do my degree to become a rec therapist, and then somewhere within that I came out as queer. And I just felt like I didn't have any education that really explained to me what queer sex was supposed to look like. So I went to a workshop, and in that workshop, of course, there was a sex educator, and I was just blown away by the idea that someone could do that, like for their life. And since then, I had kind of found all these different avenues to become a sex educator through the work that I was already doing and the opportunities that I had. And so, yeah, after I was done my undergrad and got my certification, I decided to do a master's degree. And with that, I studied people's experiences with acquired physical disability and how that impacted their sexuality.
So, I know you did a whole master's thesis on this, but what would be the bottom line or the short version of what you learned as far as the impact of disability on people's experience of their sexuality?
Yeah, so as I was doing my master's, I think a lot of what was coming up was also pretty prominent for my life. At the time, I was also starting to experience disability for the first time. So it was very intense research, but it did feel like we were all kind of going through it together. But one of the things that came up for a lot of people, and also for me, was first of all, the fact that people wanted to prioritize their pleasure. That's what I named my thesis, something about prioritizing pleasure, in that it was super important. And a lot of the time in, healthcare, especially like in rehab related healthcare or sort of in, pain management type healthcare, there's an expectation that we work on the things that have to do with our daily life, making sure we can dress ourselves or eat or like go to work. But something that gets missed a lot is how we have fun, how we enjoy ourselves. And the rec therapist in me was like, that's important too, obviously. That's pretty much the basis of rec therapy is we want people to enjoy the lives that they're leading and not just do the things that feel like they have to do. And yeah, and in my mind, sex was a part of that. And so a lot of people felt very strongly about wanting to prioritize their sexuality in some capacity. And the other piece, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so walk me through that then. What do you do when you're working with folks about prioritizing pleasure and bringing a disability lens to that? What do you do? I know you brought a few items for show and tell with you.
Yes.
Maybe you can give us a bit of a flavor of what that's like.
Yeah. So, before the toys even come out, I ask people to think about like what sex means for them, in the world that we live in, our sort of like expectations around what sex means, being straight, being able-bodied. A lot of those things kind of weave together to give us a really unrealistic expectation of what our bodies are supposed to do. So a big part of like the first step is really exploring sex outside of these really specific lenses that we've sort of been told sex is supposed to be. And one of my favorite tools to do that is sex toys. And so I did bring a couple of my favorites, something like the magic wand. This is a real big toy. It kind of looks like a microphone. And these have been around for forever. I think it just celebrated its 55th anniversary of existing, originally meant to be a back massager, and then people did what they felt like doing with it, and I am so for that. But yeah, and it's really nice and strong, and it's a way to, use something else that we maybe didn't think of using before. And then I also have the smaller vibrator that just has a nice angle to it, so it can be good for helping with reach and things like that. But generally what I like about vibrators is that our bodies don't naturally produce the types of vibrations that a sex toy would. And so introducing something new to, the pot, something that we haven't tried before, can be a fun way to explore new sensations, and just recognize that sex doesn't have to look like one specific thing. It can look like a whole bunch of different things, and it can include toys, or it doesn't have to. And that we can make it more comfortable for ourselves if we don't have to bend into ridiculous positions, or we can use things like pillows just to, put our bodies into places that are more comfortable. That's a big part of it. We should be comfortable when we're having sex if we can.
How does communication factor in when you're, I guess, talking with people about this or exploring new ways of thinking about sex and sexuality?
Yeah, so I do a lot of consent education. I think our ideas of consent are very much meant to avoid like getting in trouble or meant to avoid harm. But for me, the basis of consent is every person likes something different. Every person thinks that sex is something different or experiences pleasure in a different way. And in order to actually like enjoy what we're doing with another person, we should be asking them what they like, and maybe like boundaries that they have, things that are off the table, positions that are comfortable for them, or just places to touch. And so I feel like that really is the basis of all sexuality, in a sense, like having the opportunity to talk about what sex looks like and to figure out what's going to feel good and to problem solve. Lots of problem solving that needs to happen, because we all have different interests, and just assuming that someone likes what you like is going to probably end in not a super fun time. Maybe it will, but you won't know unless you ask about it first.
Okay, and the biggest misconception, if there was one thing that you could just totally eradicate right now, a myth that gets in people's way, what would it be?
I think the biggest one, especially when it comes to sex and disability, is this idea that sex is supposed to be spontaneous, that like I should be able to lock eyes with someone across the room and they immediately know that I want to have sex with them. And like that happens in movies and it's fun to watch, but that's already scripted. Like they know what each other wants because it was written down in a script.
Mm-hmm.
Sex is never spontaneous. I mean, like when I want to have sex might be spontaneous, but the actual act of it needs to have some planning and communication, and just so that I know what I'm getting into and I know what I want to do for.
Right. Makes sense. Thank you so much, Rachele. So if people want to learn more, where could they go? Where could you direct people to learn more about this type of educational opportunity?
Yeah, so I work for an educational sex shop and bookstore called Venus Envy. You can find us at venusenvy.ca. And if you're specifically looking to talk about sex and disability, you can just email whoever and ask for me, and I'm happy to chat more about